I came home early to a scene that shattered my world. My wife, entangled with another man. Who is he, and how long has this been going on? Thank you for your subscription and likes. What would you do if it were you? You can leave your thoughts in the comments section. Hi, I'm Zane, a primary school teacher with a regular work schedule. My work responsibilities are quite predictable. During school hours, I have specific times for various classes, including meetings with staff on Tuesdays, which usually last up to 18 hours. As a result, I always manage to get home by 7:00 in the evening. My beloved wife, Callista, who is 31 years old, always looks exhausted on Tuesday evenings due to intense workouts in the gym. Consequently, I often take it upon myself to cook dinner while she refreshes herself in the shower and does other household chores, such as making the bed. However, our routine was disrupted when the director of our school unexpectedly canceled the collective meeting for that day due to the sudden visit of the district inspector. Having regained my free time, I quickly returned to my classroom to finish work on my grades and realized that it was only 3:30. Taking advantage of the opportunity, I impulsively decided to go home earlier than scheduled to cook dinner and do the remaining chores around the house before Callista returned from the gym. Lately, she has been gradually distancing herself from me, and I hope that a romantic candlelit dinner in a relaxed atmosphere, free from pressing household issues, would be able to revive the closeness and passion that we once shared. Our marriage has often been at the mercy of fate, usually related to financial problems. It became obvious to me that she had become more detached, showing an increasing desire to control all aspects of our lives. This led to her becoming stubborn and entering into conflicts when something did not go according to her rules. Despite all these difficulties, I remained patient. I got home earlier than usual. That day, I parked the car in a remote garage, strategically located far from home. This was done in the first years of our children's lives to ensure they had a restful sleep, as the noise of the car did not interfere. Their sleep was invaluable not only for their health, but also for our sanity. It gave us much-needed quiet time to recuperate while they were peacefully napping. As I was walking slowly towards our two-story house, I noticed Callista's car parked outside. This was a common occurrence during her training days, as she preferred to take the bus, concentrating on putting things in order. I quietly enter the house through the back door. As a person who knows how to fix things around the house, I was proud that all the door hinges and moving parts in our house were in excellent condition, working smoothly and without annoying sounds. The sounds of smashing doors or creaking hinges were what really bothered us. But when I entered the kitchen, my attention was immediately drawn to Callista's purse, which was still on the table. I knew she would be very upset about this, as Callista always tried to keep her purse handy wherever she was. This unexpected sight diverted my attention from the usual cleaning and forced me to be more attentive to the surrounding details. On a floor near the kitchen counter lay sports clothes consisting mainly of a tight-fitting jumpsuit and a large towel. At that moment, faint sounds came from our bedroom upstairs. Perhaps Callista had suddenly fallen ill and was now upstairs. I naively assumed. I carefully climbed the carpeted stairs. The steps were soft and thoughtful. Suddenly I almost tripped over men's shoes, blocking the way. These were not my own shoes, and they did not match the long trousers, shirt, and trousers that came with them. When I climbed the remaining stairs, a chaotic picture appeared before my eyes. Scattered underwear and socks lay mixed with Callista's seductive underwear, the kind that was intended for special occasions, such as a wedding anniversary. I did not expect such a sight, being in complete silence. Conflicting emotions overwhelmed me when my rational mind came into conflict with the reality of my marriage experience, which had always been built on innocence, trust, and unshakable faith in the loyalty, love, and devotion of my wife. I froze in place. My body was covered with perspiration. My blood pressure dropped sharply and my heart stopped beating. For a moment I had to sit down on the stairs to collect my thoughts. Some distrust quickly turned into an unusual surge of anger. I'm usually characterized by a common unflappable character, especially as a teacher working with a class consisting of 30 different children. But at that moment that calmness left me. Suddenly adrenaline surged through my veins, and I experienced a feeling of rage that I had never encountered before. It was as if I had never been in a real fight before, and these emotions were completely alien to me. Nevertheless, despite the influx of these incomprehensible sensations, I tried to keep my composure with an anxious desire to learn more. I carefully climbed the stairs. Each step was quiet and cautious. The destination of my unhealthy curiosity turned out to be an unusual wardrobe from which you could get into both the bedroom and the bathroom. Passing through the bathroom, I found myself on the threshold of a spacious dressing room which smoothly turned into a bedroom. Looking through the partially open door of the room, located at an ideal distance, my gaze stopped at the bed. It was as if I'd become an involuntary spectator of a chilling adult film, unable to take my eyes off it. When I listened, the air was filled with moans and wheezes full of violent passion. Overwhelmed by the tension of the moment, I instinctively reached for the phone to capture the shocking scene. It was very important to document these as a tangible reminder that this was not some fictional nightmare, but an undeniable reality. Armed with this evidence, I had to talk to Callista about the heartbreaking betrayal unfolding right before my eyes. My gaze was riveted to the sight I could not tear myself away from, the sight of my wife, my lover, the companion of my whole life, a person I trusted unconditionally, the mother of our adult children, and a woman who, in her 40s, diligently maintained her physical shape by helping local charities and expressing her unwavering love. For me, she would seem to have betrayed me in the most important thing. Overcome by a sense of betrayal, I abruptly stopped recording and quietly descended the stairs. After leaving our house, I went wandering, not knowing where to go. In the end, I ended up in a distant park a few miles from our house. There I washed my face, sat down on the grass and began to watch the recording, turning off the sound, so as not to disturb the children playing nearby. The destruction of my usual life and everything that I had managed to accept as normal unfolded before my eyes like a digitized reality on a phone screen. The destruction of our marriage shattered me at that moment. Tears were streaming down my face and I felt like a balloon drifting in the wind, tied only by a fragile thread, not allowing me to disappear into the boundless sky. Fast forward to about 7:00 in the evening, the usual time of my return from the meeting. I was at the back door of our house again, and Callista immediately sensed that something was wrong. My disheveled appear, bloodshot eyes and pale complexion were indisputable signs. Worried, she asked softly, "Darling, what's wrong? You're so pale. Is everything okay?" Offering to bring me a drink, she asked, "Are you all right?" There was genuine concern in her eyes, but I couldn't bring myself to reveal the true cause of my disorder with a trembling voice. I simply replied, "No, it's okay. Maybe I ate something and my stomach hurt. I just need to take a shower and go to bed." Callista replied in a sympathetic tone, "Okay, honey, but be sure to keep a container nearby in case you get sick. We don't want any dirt to get on the freshly laundered sheets." She didn't know yet that I knew that these sheets were no longer perfectly clean. They were stained with something much worse than yesterday's food. Now they showed traces of betrayal. I plucked up the courage and answered, "Don't worry. I'll be fine. I'm going to sleep in the spare room until I recover," I said, heading to the bedroom on the ground floor over the next few days. Callista remained the same as before and I went about my business on autopilot, hiding in a spare room so that I could see her as little as possible. But I understood that it would take a long time to use an excuse that I would not succeed badly. Reluctantly, I returned to our bedroom, but a nagging sense of betrayal haunted me in this nest of infidelity. Despite my discomfort, Callista didn't seem to notice my concern and continued to behave as usual. Monday was approaching and I finally made a firm decision on what to do. I wanted to find out if this was a common occurrence or just a one-time thing. Therefore, I informed the director about an unforeseen medical procedure that I had to undergo the next day. He immediately arranged for a replacement teacher to work in my classroom on Tuesday morning. As usual, I parked my car a few streets away from our neighborhood. Then I quietly returned to our street, trying not to catch the eyes of the neighbors, knowing the back entrances to the yards located next to our house. I headed to the garage located at the back of the plot. There I changed into comfortable clothes and put on soft socks so that the steps were quiet. The waiting game had begun unexpectedly crossing the threshold of my house last Tuesday. I remember that there was not a single additional car parked in our driveway. Therefore, I could not count on the sound of a car approaching to notify me of the arrival of guests. I had to rely on my own feelings. Cautiously on tiptoe, I made my way through the garden, bypassing the hedges and shrubs that we had thoughtfully planted for privacy from the road. Finally, I found a place where our front door was clearly visible, but at the same time I was covered with foliage standing patiently in place. I could hear Callista going about her daily business, completely oblivious to my presence. It was obvious that she was completely confident in the usual sequence of events. The dishwasher was bustling in the kitchen, the living room was being cleaned, vacuumed, dusted. This routine lasted until about 11:30. Then Callista went upstairs. I could hear the sounds of the shower, then silence, and then the sound of the toilet flushing. After about 45 minutes, she came down the stairs and left the front door ajar. I didn't have to wait long. Around 12:30 he appeared. I didn't know who he was, but he entered through the left side of our gate. My phone took a 10-second video recording, capturing side profiles and even an almost straight view of his face. Without hesitation, he quickly walked inside through the door. The next words that reached my ear sent shivers down my spine. "Hi, sweetheart. I hope you're ready for another intense workout," he said. Callista's response sounded natural. "Of course, you always like it when I wear this. I sometimes wonder if they don't captivate you so much." Perhaps it was these exchanges that strengthened my suspicions. It was not a fleeting meeting, but a constant affair. The care scheme of their intimate meeting suggested a well-rehearsed routine. Having watched enough, I dared not continue watching from my place, since entering the house meant bringing trouble upon myself. They had just entered the bedroom, and I, trying to regain my composure, headed to the garage. My heart was pounding uncontrollably, demanding a moment of calm, but curiosity forced me to delve deeper into this mystery. Who, where, and why? How do I tell Callista that I know about her cheating? What exactly is she up to? All this information hit me like a whirlwind, completely turning my world upside down. It dawned on me that I would never be able to love my wife, Callista, the way I used to. The betrayal was too deep. I understood that some people believe that with proper consultation and a certain degree of dedication on both sides, such situations can be overcome. But it was quite obvious that Callista's commitment level was alarmingly low. From now on, I would never be able to fully enjoy our intimate relationship with her. I didn't notice any traces of the use of protective equipment anywhere. Recently, sex had become a rare phenomenon, and it was obvious. If she is engaged in intimacy with another man and does not talk about it openly, then who knows what else she can get infected with. The why was the biggest concern. Why was she looking for intimacy elsewhere, and why didn't she inform me of her wishes in advance? It suddenly dawned on me that this act of intimate betrayal was just a symptom of a much deeper problem: a lack of trust and unwillingness to share intimacy. My marriage was in complete disarray, and she destroyed the foundation of our relationship. I couldn't help but wonder when and where it all started. I knew that Callista had been going to the gym for at least 2 years. The gym she went to was only 2 bus stops from our house and was popular with several married ladies in our neighborhood. I thought it was a great concept because it allowed Callista to connect with other women and create a sense of community for others. These ladies became very close to her, so much so that they even persuaded her to participate in various charity events held in the neighborhood. Maybe the gym could be a good place for me too. I can join Callista at our gym and maybe meet new people in the area. It seems to me that this is a great opportunity to establish contact with other people and contribute to the life of society by participating in charity events. In addition, the convenience of the gym, located just 2 bus stops from our house, makes it even more attractive. I will be able to improve my fitness and at the same time, establish relationships with like-minded people. This is definitely worth considering as a starting point on my path to a healthy lifestyle and participation in public life. The group consisted exclusively of married women, and during our classes they mostly dominated the conversations. It looked like a weak excuse to exclude me from the group, since they were worried about who would be at home while I went to the gym, but I persisted, and the following Thursday I managed to join them. When I entered the hall, it seemed to me that I had entered a saloon where someone had ordered milk. All eyes were fixed on me, and I could not help noticing the murmurs exchanged by the ladies. Callista assured me that they just weren't used to seeing her accompanied. During regular gym sessions, the lesson began with the usual warm-up and stretching exercises. Then, for an hour and a half, we alternated exercises at the stations, ensuring that each muscle group was properly worked out. I continued to study as long as possible, but after about 45 minutes I felt that I needed to pause and take a breath. It became obvious that my blood sugar level was falling, which required immediate consumption of sweet treats. Realizing this, I took a break to eat marmalade, and Callista was sympathetic to my need. Sitting down on the next chair, I began to watch Callista more closely, and it became noticeable that she was visibly worried. Her gaze kept darting towards the staff area, where the instructors were coming out into the main hall. Gradually, I began to pay closer attention to the gym around me. It was like any other gym that can be found anywhere in the world. Exercise machines were scattered around, and at each station there was a wall mirror allowing you to assess your posture and muscle relief at any time. With curiosity, I walked around the hall until my gaze stopped at the wall with information about the staff located near the exit of the hall. I approached it, partly to distract myself and pass the time until the end of classes with Callista. The photo at the top caught my attention. After reading the description, I saw a woman whose age was difficult to determine but undoubtedly had a good figure in exceptional physical fitness. I couldn't help but think about her impressive figure. Her name was Ava Thorne, the director and owner of the establishment. Next to her name was a contact mobile phone number in working hours. Under her photo, I noticed 3 more people, 2 women and 1 man. At that moment, I stopped. The man in the photo turned out to be Callista's lover. This was the same man who, with the ENT consent of my wife, entered into an affair. Curiosity got the better of me, and I continued reading his description, and so Mr. Philippe Blunt, a respected leader in the field of training, regiment planning, and personal body training. Mentally writing down his phone number, I accidentally looked at Callista and realized that she was no longer at the station where I had last seen her. Intrigued, I repeated my journey and carefully examined all the stations in search of my wife. After a while, I noticed her engaged, as it seemed to me, in a tense conversation with a man who was partially hidden by the lifting mechanism. Apparently, the man was standing at the entrance to the service area, and he was obviously not allowed inside. She gave him the signal to leave and hurried back to the station where she was waiting. Not knowing about my observation and the conversation that took place, she did not guess about my growing anger. This feeling was unfamiliar to me, and when Callista eventually returned to where I was sitting, she immediately noticed my anxious state. "Are you okay? What is it?" she asked anxiously. "Do you need some time to stabilize your blood sugar?" I replied yes, but everything is fine now. "Are you ready to go?" When she wanted to answer my question, Miss Wells announced on the speakerphone in the gym. I noticed Callista's silent reaction. The usual final exercise session for today was cancelled due to the fact that Mr. Blunt suddenly fell ill and had to leave. A chorus of groans swept through the hall, clearly indicating that most of the women present were looking forward to his classes. Intrigued, I thought about the significance of this fact and decided that it requires further study. Feeling Callista's relief, I said, "Leighton, go in a hurry." She quickly gathered her towel and purse in a specially designated place where everyone keeps their things during training. As we were leaving, an unknown woman approached Callista, catching her by surprise. "What a pity that Phil couldn't finish today." As usual, the woman commented. Callista nodded in agreement and walked briskly to the car, clearly indicating that she did not want to discuss this topic anymore. "Okay, see you later." Callista squeaked dismissively and jumped into the car with amazing speed. The way back was surprisingly calm. Callista seemed calm. She lay with her head thrown back, her eyes closed, and deliberately took deep breaths. I couldn't help but pay attention to these subtle details. Perhaps now that she's clearly relieved, I can ask her more and find out more. "It was a very intriguing session, my dear," I remarked. "Apparently everything in this hall is very well equipped. No wonder you look so slim and fit." Callista gratefully replied, "You're absolutely right. They have an impressive program. I really like going there. The women there are also very nice. But I am very sorry for your coach, Mr. Blunt." "You mean Boundy," she answered hurriedly. "Phil, more precisely Philip Blunt. I added he usually ends each session with a complex exercise program that really tests the limits of everyone's abilities, ensuring that everyone leaves with the feeling that they have given their best. Unfortunately, he wasn't there today. I panicked when I realized that she was completely dedicated to cheating. I was well aware of the extent to which you pushes your body to the limit, but all I could say was an indecisive. Well, yes, perhaps by next Thursday he will start feeling better again. I couldn't help but think about the upcoming meeting between my wife and Mr. Blunt scheduled for next Thursday. It was time to focus and prepare for the following week. I found myself on school pickup duty. For those unfamiliar with this term, it means that teachers monitor the area where parents can pick up their children by car. As a rule, this is a chaotic space where children can't wait to get home, communicate with friends, and find their parents. While parents also get into this fuss, trying to keep their composure in an endless string of cars that periodically moves forward, hoping that their child will be ready by the time they get to the end of the queue. To my surprise, as the time neared the end, a car pulled up, and behind the wheel was the same woman who tried to talk to Callista during yesterday's gym class. Hello. She greeted me. I'm sorry, but I'm not familiar with this whole process and I completely forgot about the time my son, Lysander, according to the teachers, is here. We often encounter such a situation, especially if someone has come to school recently. I promised to go and look for him, while my colleague looks after the rest of the children. As I approached Lysander's classroom, I noticed that he was talking to another student. Hi, Finch, I greeted him. Your mom has already arrived to pick you up, so let's go to the gathering place together. He looked slightly taken aback by my statement, considering that he was in the last grade of elementary school. He did not seem to be a person who could forget about the meeting or be distracted in such matters. Strange, he remarked. Usually on Friday afternoon, my mom works out with a fitness instructor. As a rule, she doesn't have time to pick me up. When I studied at the previous school, it happened that she came even at 5:30. The mention of a fitness instructor immediately caused me alarm. Despite this, I tried to keep my composure and engage in casual conversation. It's nice to hear that your mom takes care of herself. Sports are really very important for maintaining a healthy lifestyle. By the way, do you happen to know who this instructor is? I silently hoped that the answer would not confirm my suspicions. His name is Bounty or something similar. Lysander replied. In addition, he works at a nearby gym offering private lessons for people without leaving home. As an adult, I strive to follow in his footsteps. My mom finds great pleasure in his company during training every Friday night when we get home. She looks incredibly calm and radiant. It's a wonderful sight. Since Mom rarely has time to cook on Fridays, we usually get takeout food, the boy added. I couldn't help but think that this man, Bonnie, must be providing his services not only to my wife. I walked Lysander to the car and his mother loudly thanked me for my care. No problem, I reassured her. It's all part of the service. By the way, I don't think we've met before. My name is Zane Diaz, glad to meet you. I held out my hand and she introduced herself as Eloan Drake. She mentioned that she saw me at the gym last Thursday when I came in with my wife, Callista. She apologized for Callista's hasty departure, explaining that Mr. Bonnie's absence had disrupted the daily routine that evening. At that moment, her whole behavior changed dramatically. Before that, she looked like a repentant parent who was late to pick up a child from school. But in an instant, her face turned pale and she became alert. She flinched slightly, her excitement becoming obvious with doubt in her voice. She said, "Yes, okay. See you later, Mr. Diaz, goodbye." And she left quickly. It was time to forge my own path, a future that I once believed was planned during a conversation with my future ex-wife, Callista. But now that future seemed bleak to me. It painted a lonely existence without Callista and perhaps without anyone else. Having experienced anger, I went on an unexpected journey, plunging into the world of revenge. Along the way, I began to meticulously study those subtle aspects that often go unnoticed in the daily life of married couples. Who is responsible for paying the bills? Which insurance company do we rely on? When do I need to pay for utilities? Which account should be used for specific payments and at what time? These questions did not give me peace of mind. While I diligently replenished my piggy bank of information, to my surprise, I discovered that our mortgage debt is just a meager amount waiting to be repaid. I was amazed when I discovered that an impressive amount of money had accumulated in my retirement account 90,000. I'm sincerely grateful to our teachers' union for standing up for mandatory contributions to the Super Boarding House Fund as one of the main conditions of a teacher's work. After a deep, detailed study of this topic on the internet, I realized that there was no way I could avoid the fact that our assets would have to be divided equally and without Callista's knowledge, since our children are already independent. We have a significant amount in our cash account intended for our upcoming trip abroad, about $3,000, and the dream trip I was planning was out of the question. Now, deciding to act quickly before Callista guessed that I knew about her betrayal, I set myself the task of emptying this account as quickly as possible. Acting unnoticed, I sabotaged various appliances in the house, deliberately causing them to malfunction by disconnecting one wire or another. I ensured that these problems occurred when Callista was not at home when she asked about repairs. I made up a story attributing the troubleshooting to a fictional Mr. So-and-so. I mentioned the exorbitantly high amount he had quoted and claimed that he had kindly agreed to accept a lower cash payment. I carefully hid this money from prying eyes. Using this approach, I successfully hit about $2,000. In addition, I made purchases of tools and other goods for cash, which I then showed to Callista, and the next day I returned them to get the money back. I'm aware that this behavior is deception, but Callista's actions have already undermined the principles of honesty and trust in our relationship. This whole situation was turning me into something I could never have imagined, becoming a liar. Meanwhile, Callista continued her intimate meetings on Thursdays with Bonnie. I stopped making any effort to maintain a romantic relationship with Callista. Instead, we just coexisted as roommates. Gradually, my personal belongings began to disappear, finding their new home and boxes stored in the garage. Callista rarely looked there, so the rearrangement went unnoticed. When she asked why some of my personal items were no longer on the shelves, I waved her off, saying that I either accidentally broke them or lost interest in them. Apparently she was pleased with this reaction, primarily because most of my things did not match Callista's preferred color scheme or desired atmosphere in the room. When most of my things were cleared away in this manner, it did not have a significant impact on the overall atmosphere in the house. It made me realize to what extent I had succumbed to Callista's dominance in our lives. I decided to withdraw all available funds from my pension fund and bought a small house on the outskirts of the city. It had only 2 bedrooms and a small courtyard along with a garage, and was conveniently close to the school where I worked even more pleasantly. The remainder of the mortgage loan allowed me to comfortably pay it off with just half of my salary. It wasn't a luxury mansion, but it's incredible how affordable and profitable real estate can be if we don't chase flashy and popular areas. While the separation process was ongoing, I gradually moved my personal belongings to the new house. It was also not difficult to furnish the house, as I easily found secondhand or used items in thrift stores. That's how I felt about my life, as a collection of used things once loved by me but now deemed unnecessary. I had to get what I deserved. It was time for the players to get a well-deserved reward, and it was at this moment that I met Eloan Drake again. But this time she took the initiative and approached me. The memory of this moment will forever remain in my memory once again. This happened during the usual gathering of children after school. As the remaining teacher, I found myself alone with Lysander, her son, and was anticipating her arrival. When she finally appeared, it was impossible not to notice her agitated expression and traces of recent tears. Teachers often pay attention to these subtle signals because they can provide valuable information about students' personal lives and suggest ways to improve their learning. "Mr. D, can I talk to you for a minute?" she asked timidly. "Of course, there's no one else here, so don't be shy. You can take a seat and come to my office," I replied, referring to the benches placed around the school. She parked nearby and Lysander busied himself with a soccer ball. We settled down on a bench located next to the pickup area. "I don't know how to start." She hesitated, preparing to share something important with me. "I don't know how familiar you were with the gym where you saw me," she said, meeting my gaze. "But my wife, Callista, is a regular visitor, and he plays an important role in keeping her fit and active." I answered cautiously, feeling that this was not all. She seemed to be on the verge of tears and spoke with difficulty. Is she related to Philip Bondi? I asked, trying to get down to business. You have no idea how much this disgusting man is involved with your wife, she declared, her voice full of anger. I think I have some information. I really want to hear what you have to say, I encouraged with renewed confidence. He's a gambler. The only purpose of his presence there is the desire to sleep with as many women as possible who visit that place, she said, emotionally overwhelmed, holding back tears. I was curious and I asked, how did you find out, with tears in her eyes? She stammered, because I was one of them, emotionally overwhelmed. She explained with tears in her eyes. I'm telling you about this only because I finally realized who he really is and, more importantly, what he is. Taking a deep breath, she continued. A week ago, we had a regular, intimate relationship. He came to me every Friday around 12:30. Don't get me wrong. He was truly skilled, a master of his craft. He had the ability to ignite every part of my being lost in her thoughts. She looked longingly at the sky, as if reliving the moments they spent together. My gaze followed her example, but with a different purpose. I also remembered our meetings, but not with such longing. I'm sorry, she continued, regretfully. I cherished our sure experiences, but they ended abruptly when he replaced me without explanation. It's like I was just thrown out. I hoped for our future, but alas, this was not to be. Having experienced a divorce, I long for the affection and companionship that marriage gives. I was hoping to experience it again, but my expectations were shattered. When he caught me by surprise with his unexpected behavior, I was completely stunned. How could this woman consider it acceptable to veege all this information to me? Obviously, she was very angry. I hurried to answer, realizing that marital relations do not always coincide with our ideas. Looking into my eyes, she realized that I was experiencing pain and suffering. You already know, don't you? She asked, slowly, shaking her head in disbelief. You know that he was involved with Callista, your wife. Yes, I already know everything, Maureen. I'm grateful to you for sharing this. Although I must admit I barely managed to hide my anger, but I already have a plan to resolve this situation. I really believe in the concept of karma, and I have a feeling that it will soon begin to act. This vile man deserves to be punished, I responded. Maureen almost screamed. He doesn't care about the feelings and well-being of other people, using them solely for his own satisfaction. He brags about it to his friends in the pop. If you need my help in seeking retribution, please feel free to let me know. Oh, this scoundrel will have to face the consequences, and they won't be easy, she muttered, resolutely repeating her words. She called out to her son, making it clear that they were leaving. I remained sitting, lost in thought and pondering the situation. Maureen's revelation brought me a sense of relief, as I realized that my desire for revenge was just a consequence of my own bitterness over a failed marriage. This required careful consideration. I wondered how many other women from the gym he was involved with. It was time to collect concrete evidence. I couldn't help but notice his stamina, although it seemed that even the devil himself never gets tired after finding out that he visits this place every day, except on Mondays when the gym is closed. I remember the phone number posted on the gym wall, using the white pages of the phone book. I tracked this number to an address located just 3 blocks from our house. It became clear why this vile guy could easily walk to our house and enter into an illicit relationship with my future. Your ex-wife informed Callista of his intention to take a walk every day around 5:00 p.m., citing his specialist's recommendation. Fortunately, this was a plausible excuse. Callista had no desire to go with me, knowing that it would not interfere with her secret meetings, so everything went without problems. During my first evening walk, I immediately went to Bondi's house and noticed that he lived in an apartment on the ground floor of an apartment building. Noticing his absence, I settled down nearby and waited for his arrival, as it seemed to me he had to come around 6:00, since he constantly disappeared from our house long before that. As expected, he entered his apartment a few minutes before 6, and this happened every day when it could go out for a walk, with the exception of the day of the meeting with the staff, which coincidentally fell on a day when I could not go. I suspected that he does this every time the gym is open. Curiosity was bothering me, and I reflected that every day he has another woman with whom he has fun. Deciding to get to the truth, I began to find out if he had other women. My daily walks gradually became earlier and earlier solely to observe his whereabouts and actions. In the end, I decided to take a whole week off and devoted only to this investigation. Armed with the necessary tools, I quietly purchased a long-range listening device in an electronics store, which was not supposed to resemble a noticeable satellite dish. I purchased 5 full-color HD cameras with voice and motion activation. In addition, I purchased an additional portable hard drive to store all the digital evidence. Having purchased everything I needed, on Monday I started installing one of the cameras in Bondi's apartment. Fortunately, the apartment was not very large, but rather resembled a 2-room apartment with a spacious living room and a kitchen dining room. Setting up the camera so that it covered the entire space except for the bedroom was not difficult. I waited patiently until he left for the gym, giving me the perfect opportunity to get the keys to the apartment from their predictable hiding place under the rug. How cliché. I thought, unable to resist grinning at his lack of creativity. After making sure that the camera was working properly, I quickly left from that moment on. Every movement and sound in his apartment activated the camera and microphone, instantly transmitting video and sound to my computer. The footage with date marks was carefully preserved for later use. The system started working as soon as Bond got home on Monday evening. Before going to bed around 9:00 on Tuesday evening, great shots were taken of him enjoying a takeaway meal while sitting in front of the TV. Taking advantage of the fact that the gym was closed, I patiently waited until it was closed and got inside through the often unnoticed back door. Fortunately, luck was on my side. I installed the next camera in a secluded room at the back of the hall where clients underwent an individual health assessment. This place was often used by Bonnie for her intimate activities. Reflecting on my actions, I couldn't help but wonder what kind of person I had become to place cameras in other people's possessions and engage in invasive espionage. What could all this lead to? On Wednesday, I patiently waited until Callista left for groceries and quietly installed the 3rd and 4th cameras in our bedroom and living room. After reviewing the recordings made on Tuesday, I was shocked by what I saw and heard, although I could not fully understand the context. Bonnie woke up immediately and left the house to return later with breakfast. It annoyed me that lazy Bonnie couldn't even make himself breakfast. He stayed at home until the gym opened and left at 10:30, but during his stay he made an intriguing phone call. I heard him say, "Julie, hi, it's Philosophy. Has he left yet? Of course. Then I'll see you at 12:30 at your house. Don't forget to wear the outfit I was talking about. Don't worry, I'll be careful when I come to you. Did you say he'd be gone for 3 days? Well, maybe I can come also on Thursday and Friday. Let's talk about it later today, my love." Having said that, he ended the conversation with noticeable ease. I wondered how he would explain his act to Callista. On Thursday, I went to the garage with a computer and waited patiently for the stormy events to begin almost immediately. A recording from Bonnie's camera appeared on the screen when he woke up. He went out for breakfast and then came back and called. He dialed Callista's number and the camera recorded both sides of the conversation. "Hi, this is Philosophy. How are you doing?" Phil spoke flirtatiously, but Callista warned him not to talk like that on the phone because you never know who might be listening. Callista noted that I had already left for work and they agreed to meet at the usual time at 12:30. Maureen, a parent from school, is ready to help me. I asked her to compile a list of women with whom Bonnie was involved or had a relationship. She got down to business with great enthusiasm and collected names and addresses in just a week. To my horror and disappointment, Callista's name was included in the list. By this time, I had almost torn myself away from our house. I hesitate to call it home because it has lost all sentimental meaning now. It was just a house. Callista once mentioned that it seemed unusually empty. Lately, I casually explained that I was actively getting rid of my junk. She accepted my answer without caring about her own junk. In addition to the fact that she got an extra place to store her things from the garage, Rem moved to my new home in order to completely vacate the room. It remained only to quickly, in 20 minutes, collect the remaining things and leave in my car. Before that, I had already sought the advice of a divorce lawyer, and all the necessary documents were carefully prepared and ready for transfer at any time. The financial issues were resolved, and I successfully transferred the entire amount spent on vacation to my personal bank account. To be fully prepared, I diligently kept all the receipts for imaginary purchases in a neat folder so that they could be easily found if necessary. I made significant changes to my financial arrangements. First, I updated the beneficiaries of my superannuation fund, specifying our children as recipients. In addition, I have withdrawn all available funds from the account. I've also taken steps to separate my personal finances, such as setting up individual accounts, credit cards, and insurance policies, to ensure the full transfer of ownership. I transferred Callista's car, including registration and insurance, exclusively to her name, placing all responsibility for and on her. Unfortunately, I had no authority over the house, so I had to rely on the court's decisions regarding its fate. In addition, I purchased a new mobile phone registered only in my name and made sure that its number was not included in the list. To ensure confidentiality in this regard, I gave up the old phone. I have put together a collection of gifts for every husband or partner associated with the women mentioned by Maureen. Each package contained information about places where Bonnie had intimate relations with their spouses. I also provided Bonnie's personal details, such as his name and address, to address the issue of unprotected intimate contacts. Additionally, I included the address of a local intimate health clinic in the package. In addition, I took the initiative and sent a detailed letter to the owner of the gym, in which I advised him to have a serious talk with his chief instructor. Finally, I discreetly attached the divorce papers and several printed photos taken from CCTV cameras, which depicted Bonnie and Callista on the kitchen table. I left a bundle with DVDs depicting intimate moments of her infidelities, as well as an engagement ring, brutally sawn in half and smeared with feces. The note hidden underneath it all contained a clear message to Callista. I am giving this shattered ring symbolizing the destruction you have brought to our marriage. If you want to communicate, then only through the lawyer listed in our divorce papers. I have taken all necessary measures to prohibit you from entering the school grounds, so please refrain from trying to contact me there. Causing a disturbance on school grounds will immediately lead to police intervention. Our children have been informed of your dirty infidelities. In order to clarify the reason for our breakup and prevent false accusations, I took precautions and sent copies of the DDDS to the relevant parties. After that, I moved to a new place of residence, anticipating the inevitable consequences, and indeed they unfolded with great intensity. Surprisingly, local media reported about a scandal with a gym located nearby, which led to its closure and the departure of the owner from the city. Another incident, a former gym instructor was found in a gateway in the city center, who was allegedly attacked by an unknown group of men. The number of applications for divorce in the local court has sharply increased, which caused a wave of houses for sale. On one of the fateful days, Callista returned home and was greeted with my parting gifts, which made her faint. Terrified by the scream, the neighbors saw Callista collapse to the floor. An observant elderly neighbor, a strong woman of about 70, did not immediately pay attention to the package accompanying him. Quickly understanding the reason for Callista's collapse, she once again confirmed her acute intuition. Before leaving the house, she made sure to call the rescue service, leaving the door ajar. Later, Callista tried to contact me. Despite her best efforts, she couldn't reach me on any of the available phones. Desperate to meet me, she decided to come to our school, but was detained by the authorities. The overnight stay in the gatehouse and the strict warning of the justice of the peace significantly stopped her attempts. Our children, expressing their disapproval unconditionally, made it clear that they think of a man who, so shameless, betrays his spouse. Fortunately, both I and our children, unlike Callista, inherited more principled views on loyalty. In the end, the divorce was finalized and the remaining financial issues were resolved in the usual manner. As a result, Callista was forced to sell the house. After receiving the money, she was able to rent an apartment on the outskirts of the city where she currently lives. She was ashamed to appear on the street and in society. She was recognized everywhere and poked at her with a finger. Her identity was recognized, and every time she went out into the city, she was met with disapproving looks and whispered ridicule. The overwhelming despair of this rejection and humiliation eventually pushed her to go to a psychiatric clinic. It also turned out that Bonnie infected many women, including Callista, with syphilis. She soon fell into a deep depression. Our children, just like me, did not want to communicate with their shameful mother, and I live in my small house. I can't forgive my cheating ex-wife story too. I often say that a quick way to heal from heartache is to start an intimate life as soon as possible. This theory was tested in practice when my closest friend discovered that his fiancée had an affair with another man in the dressing room on her wedding day. Accordingly, that morning I woke up with the expectation of fulfilling my duty as best man at my friend's wedding. But instead of spending the night with his new wife, my friend and the rest of the groom's friends went with him to a bar from where he left with an attractive brunette. The story began with the fact that my friend, whom I will call Rohan, brought an invitation to his wedding. Rohan and I were not only classmates in college, but also close friends, so it was fitting that I would be by his side as one of his chauffeurs on his special day. Years after our college days during college, Rohan was in a relationship with a girl named Aurelia. Aurelia, who was a year younger than us, had a lively and charismatic character, although she was prone to excessive demands. Despite this, we all cherished her company very much, because she brought humor and a bright mood to our company. It is worth noting that she was also incredibly attractive. All our friends were passionate about her, but our friend Rohan stood out from the rest, so we thought they were the perfect couple. Meanwhile, Aurelia led an active social life, participated in numerous school events, and showed a penchant for political activism and liberal ideology. In addition, she had a close male friend whom we took to be open gay because of his flamboyant manners and use of cosmetics. We did not consider him a serious contender for Aurelia's love, since he exclusively met with men. Accordingly, Rohan never perceived him as a potential rival. Since her gay best friend is the most important element of this story, we will call him Dorian. So Aurelia and Dorian knew each other before Aurelia went on a romantic trip, with Rohan, Dorian being the personification of support, sincerely approved of Aurelia and Rohan's relationship. One semester, I started sharing a room with Rohan, and as a result, Aurelia and Dorian became frequent guests in our apartment. Their presence became so familiar that we had already become accustomed to their intrusion. From the moment Rohan and Aurelia became a couple, it became obvious that Rohan was deeply in love. He began to prefer communicating with Aurelia over communicating with us, including her in all aspects of his life. Even during our boys' night out events, Rohan couldn't be separated from Aurelia, and she often accompanied us. Dorian also joined us sometimes, and we got used to his presence when we graduated from high school. It seemed inevitable to everyone that Aurelia and Rohan would end up together. There was no doubt about it. 2 years passed, and at the age of 25, I found a job I liked and settled in my own apartment. Life really was kind to me, and I led a real bachelor lifestyle, having a good appearance. I managed to attract several interested women. The idea of settling down or starting a serious relationship didn't even cross my mind. I was the epitome of a playboy. Every evening I went out into the city enjoying the excitement, and most often successfully brought my companion home. It was a blissful existence, and I couldn't ask for more. Around the same time, I received a rather unexpected text message and then a phone call from Rohan with an offer to become one of his best men. There was no need for his request, given our close friendship that had developed in our student years. Nevertheless, I gladly accepted this offer. Closer to the wedding, we agreed that we would measure our outfits. To my surprise, I saw not only Rohan and his fiancée Aurelia there, but also Dorian. It had been quite a while since I had seen Dorian, and we took the opportunity to catch up. During our conversation, I learned that he had entered into a serious relationship with his chosen one. Dorian not only coped well with his workouts outside the city, but also found time to attend the wedding. It is not surprising that he and Aurelia remained the closest friends living in the same city. During this period, I also had the pleasure of meeting Rohan's younger sister, who seemed to me very intriguing. However, I made a conscious decision not to go beyond friendly relations out of respect for my friend. Despite this, the mutual understanding between us remained, and we often engaged in light banter at every opportunity. When the wedding day came, I ordered an Uber car which took me to an elegant mansion rented for this event. We had the opportunity to capture some beautiful moments of the wedding in the magnificent mansion. I was pleased to meet all the important people, including the groom's close relatives, who acted as best men and bridesmaids. In addition, many of our classmates attended the wedding. The program of the day included an elegant wedding ceremony in white tones, followed by a reception on a stunning beach. It might seem somewhat extravagant to allocate SE places for a white wedding and reception when they could be conveniently held in the same place. But Aurelia had her own vision and she wanted everything to be exactly as it should be. Aurelia was looking forward to the wedding day and could not help but feel a sense of pride. The wedding was certainly luxurious. Its total cost was $5,000. Rohan, being a generous person, contributed $2,000. At the same time, Aurelia's parents kindly contributed to cover the remaining expenses. Rohan couldn't contain his delight about this, constantly mentioning that thanks to Aurelia's parents, she was able to arrange a fabulous wedding which she had always dreamed of. Aurelia, known for her perfectionism, spared no expense to ensure that every detail was flawless. Although he often kept track of his expenses, he understood the importance of this special day for Aurelia and spared no expense to make it truly unforgettable. He could not come to terms with the fact that for the wedding, which would take place in just 24 hours, they allocated a staggering amount of $5,000. Both Rohan and I were sure that this amount was prohibitively high. If he had the opportunity, he would prefer a more modest wedding for $1,000 and with fewer guests. But Aurelia was adamant, and this insistence only intensified the possible catastrophe. She longed for many guests to witness what she considered the pinnacle of her existence. The outdoor ceremony was supposed to be the epitome of a traditional white wedding. They rented a sprawling 2-acre property that housed a grand 150-foot mansion, where the bridegroom and bridesmaids prepared for the celebration and took stunning photos. The outdoor scenery was amazing and no funds were spared in creating a picturesque setting. It was undeniably beautiful. Even I, who doubted the extravagant cost of the wedding, could not help but be charmed by its beauty. Finally, the long-awaited moment arrived and the wedding began. All the guests, including the priest, were looking forward to the start of the ceremony. However, we were already 45 minutes behind schedule. The groom, including myself, found solace in one of the spacious bedrooms located in a separate wing of the house. While we waited for a signal from the wedding organizer that we could walk down the aisle, laughter and jokes filled the air. Suddenly, the responsibility for finding out the reasons for the delay and checking the condition of the bride fell on me. Perhaps it was because of my acquaintance with Rohan's fiancé and family that I was chosen for this duty. With these words, I left the room and began to fulfill my mission to find the bride, heading to the bride's dressing room located in the opposite part of the mansion. I noticed Rohan's sister, who was visibly upset near the bridesmaids' room. The rest of the bridesmaids and wedding organizers crowded around her, trying to comfort and calm her down. Intrigued by this commotion, I hurried to join them, wanting to understand the situation. But when I approached Rohan's sister, one of Aurelia's friends got in my way and began to assure me that everything was under control. I was advised to retire to the next room and wait patiently, ignoring the attempts of the wedding organizer to drive me away. But I ignored their advice and persistently approached Rohan's sister, who looked upset, though unsuccessfully comforted by others. Despite the resistance, I managed to get closer to her and hear her mention that Aurelia had a romantic relationship with Dorian. Perplexed, I looked around the neighborhood, but I didn't find either Aurelia or Dorian, which further increased my confusion. The words I just heard were absolutely unbelievable. When I learned about the current situation, I immediately thought that Rohan needed to be informed. Despite warnings and requests from Aurelia's friends and the wedding organizers to keep Rohan in the dark, I quickly grabbed Rohan's sister and hurriedly led her to the room where Rohan and the groom's friends were gathered. It was at this moment that the bride left the room. Her makeup smeared, tears streaming down her face, and she desperately trying to stop bar actions. I headed for the part of the house where Rohan was, despite her urgent cries. Having gathered my resolve, I went on and tightly closed the door behind us, actually not letting Aurelia's friend and the wedding organizer in. It seemed that a small crowd had gathered behind us, but I completely shot myself off from it. Rohan's sister, visibly upset and furious, was on edge, feeling an urgent need. I asked her to tell me everything, as it was, while everyone, including Rohan, crowed closely around her. It was at this moment that she finally revealed the truth to us. As Aurelia prepared to walk down the aisle, despite her beautiful white dress and carefully applied makeup, a sense of anxiety was growing in her. Surprisingly, it was Dorian who helped her with her makeup, which perhaps explains why he accompanied her to the gym. By coincidence, Rohan's sister realized that she had forgotten something important in her bag, which was in the same room. Without hesitation, she returned for and found that the room was unlocked. To her horror and shock, she stumbled upon an unpleasant scene. Aurelia and Dorian were making love. There was a scene on the bed that caused her to suddenly scream. In an instant, a whole flurry of interested persons burst into the room. Aurelia and Dorian desperately begged, insisting that it was all a misunderstanding, and asked Rohan's sister not to divulge the truth. However, Rohan's sister was in a state of panic. Her anxiety was palpable. As the chaos escalated, she rushed into the room, clutching at some sharp object with trembling hands. When they saw the consequences of their actions, a shocking realization dawned on them. They frantically urged Rohan's sister to be silent, but her hysteria did not stop outside the room. It was at this moment that I entered the room and witnessed the unfolding commotion. The look on Rohan's face when he heard this story is etched in my memory. His hands were raised above his head, and all he could say was, "Oh my God." Suddenly, there was a sharp knock on the door signaling that the wedding was almost 2 hours behind schedule, and the guests were beginning to show impatience sitting on the bed. I asked about Rohan's intentions. He declared his desire to take revenge on Dorian. I suggested that maybe we could resolve this issue later, but in the meantime we need to think about the wedding. Rohan admitted that he could not look at this crowd. I asked him about his intentions, as a result of which he got up from his seat and confessed that he could not continue the wedding. It was obvious that he was deeply saddened. His face was flushed with excitement. He began to breathe rapidly. He was overwhelmed with the feeling of stiffness, so he threw open the door and headed for the place reserved for the bride. When he entered the room, he found her in tears, begging to forgive her. In a fit of anger, he attacked her with screams, demanding to know how long their intimacy lasted. She tearfully admitted that it was a spontaneous mistake. Beside himself with rage, Rohan ran out of the building when a crowd of people rushed after him. The situation became chaotic, resembling a building engulfed in flames. In search of salvation, he hurried to get into the car and instructed the driver to return him to the hotel. Not knowing what to do, I was faced with a choice: follow my friend Rohan or stay inside the grand estate. In the end, I decided to go to the backyard, if only to inform Rohan's parents about the chaos that was happening. Returning to the mansion, I saw Dorian slip out of the room. One noticed and get into his car. When I returned to the mansion, it turned out that his task was completed. Here all eyes were on me, as if I was to blame for the mess that was unfolding in front of us. The bride, overcome with emotion, sobbed uncontrollably, and her friends desperately tried to comfort her. The scene was nothing short of a disaster. To this was added the fact that the father of the bride was seething with anger. His disappointment was obvious because he had invested a considerable amount of money, looking forward to the moment when he would proudly lead his daughter down the aisle. The atmosphere was like pandemonium. In search of a short respite from the chaos, I headed to the backyard where the snow-white wedding was to take place. In the front row, ignoring the unfolding drama, sat Rohan's parents. It was my duty to inform them of the sad turn of events. With a heavy heart, I approached them and gently broke the news. The shock on their faces was unmistakable. I looked around and noticed that the news spread quickly among the guests, as it usually happens. To my surprise, some of them were already heading for the exit. I was struck by how significant this wedding was because the guest list covered several generations of relatives, colleagues, and acquaintances. A wave of sadness washed over me when I saw that most of those present were standing and having quiet conversations. Some even decided to end the evening and go home. Rohan's sister and another brother came up to us, taking a seat next to us in the front row. After receiving instructions from Rohan's father, I felt an urgent need to find Rohan and make sure of his well-being. Full of determination, I realized that it was time to leave and visit my dear friend. Attempts to contact him by phone were in vain, and I turned to a friend who accompanied him. Fortunately, he told me where their current location is a local bar. Without delay, I called Uber and set off to the specified place. Upon arrival at the bar, to my surprise, I found the whole company of the grooms still in their wedding dresses. Considering the late hour, about 4 or 5:00 in the evening, we decided to move to the nearest restaurant to refresh ourselves. Our main goal was to cheer up Rohan, so we spared no effort trying to put a smile back on his face. It was fortunate that he found out the truth sooner rather than later. After lunch, I received an offer to visit a club where girls dance in the nude. As we arrived at the place, the atmosphere of intoxication became more and more wild. In a luxury limo accompanied by champagne and Hennessy, we celebrated as if we had won the Super Bowl. Despite the hidden sadness, we all decided to indulge in fun together to distract ourselves from problems for a while. Amid the fun, some of the groom's friends, including me and the groom, entered into an intimate relationship with the dancers, which added spice to the evening. We had no desire to enter into any romantic relationship with them. Therefore, in the evening we decided to go on a date, and to our surprise, the groom took home a completely unknown girl. As a result, the wedding was suddenly cancelled and the amount of 5,000 was wasted. To this was added the chaos in Rohan and Aurelia's relationship, and Dorian made an unexpected statement that he no longer considers himself gay. Now he has a romantic relationship with Aurelia, which much to the shock and disapproval of her parents, who in fact disowned her. Looking back, it's sad and funny at the same time to realize the true nature of Rohan and Aurelia's relationship. It also turned out that Gaylord, who for many years could not decide on a permanent partner and had an active sex life with many partners, was infected not only with herpes, but was also HIV positive. The funny thing is that Aurelia knew about his HIV infection and entered into an unprotected intimate relationship with him, but she did not know about herpes, and of course the infection was transmitted to her. When Aurelia discovered that she was also ill, she made a scandal to Dorian. Then he disappeared from the city. Aurelia was left alone, useless to anyone, even to her once beloved family, and even with a whole bunch of venereal diseases.